Hello and welcome back to The Drag Detective. I'm Derek and I'm sorry it's been a hot second since I've had a video out. If you've been listening to the Rigged Recap, which also had to take a little bit of a break, I got the flu. And it was about the worst time I've ever been sick in my entire life. I was going through a Rolodex of symptoms of terror. And I'm still kind of gross. Like, I'm probably going to have to edit out about 5,000 coughing fits from this recording, but we gotta get these videos popping because we have so much shit. There were so many videos I had planned. I feel like this always happens. I get sick right when I have like 4 important videos that need to come out at a certain date because apparently my body is out to get me. So I want to get out this video. I want to get a video out about Nymphia Wind. I want to get a video out about the Riggory of season 16. There's so many things to do. So let's talk today about UK versus the World 2. Which, if you listen to the Rigged Recap, I did this season with Matthew Belak, and we talked very much in depth about every single episode. So if you want more thoughts on this season, you can go listen to the Rigged Recap wherever you listen to podcasts. And this season, I definitely was worried about. I wasn't super obsessed with the cast at first. I wasn't super obsessed with just versus the World seasons in general. And while I don't think this was a perfect season, I definitely ended up liking it in the second half more than I did the first few episodes. Especially watching it back, knowing how everything, went, I enjoyed this season quite a lot. And it actually is my favorite of the Versus the World seasons. So as always, we will dive in episode by episode, talk about all of the decisions. So without further ado, as always, let's look at the cast. This was a very interesting cast. I wasn't sold on it at first. I definitely was not sold on it at first. I felt like a lot of the choices, specifically for like UK, for the US, I was just like, okay, like that's probably not what I would have done. That's probably not any of the choices that I would have made. But there still were queens that I was excited about, like Tia Kofi, like Scarlet Envy, obviously Mayhem Miller. What really excited me the most was the international non-Ru hosted seasons, who they chose, like Marina Summers and Kata Minaj and Grande and Arancha, Castilla-La Mancha. Like, there were so many really good picks there that it kind of felt like that was going to be the selling point of the season for me. Like, love Scarlet, love Mayhem. I didn't need to see either of them come back necessarily. I didn't need to see Jomber's Blonde back this early. I didn't need to see Gothy Kendall back. Like, there was definitely just people that I was like, okay, yeah, like, sure. But the main selling point for me was those 4 from the non-Ru hosted franchises. Coming in, though, I was a little bit, like, confused just on, like, who production was going to push, because obviously, like, that's always going to happen. They're always going to have at least 1 or 2 favorites, and that's something that I always worry about with these seasons is, like, will the production company, will BBC kind of force production's hand in saying, okay, like, we'll do a Versus the World, but, like, a UK girl has to win, or a US girl has to win, someone who the audience knows really well. And as we know, RuPaul-led seasons are definitely more popular worldwide than non-RuPaul-led seasons. So going into these, it's 3 for 3. All 3 queens that won come from RuPaul-led seasons. Kind of what I was expecting happened, where we had a top 2 of queens who, are from RuPaul seasons and who just have a bigger name globally because of the seasons that they come from. So that was my big worry coming into this season, is like, okay, is this just going to be UK and US versus people that production doesn't give a shit about? And to some extent, that's what happened. I think it does get a little bit deeper than that, and we can kind of break that down as we go. But there's a lot to talk about. And we can start off with episode 1, which was the talent show. And I'm still over this challenge. I really don't think we need to do this, especially with so many iterations of it now, where I feel like people just don't take chances anymore. There's been so many things that have been done, it's kind of hard to think of something new, and a lot of queens kind of just, like, don't. But luckily, this talent show had a lot of very interesting, new, different types of talents that kept it really entertaining. It wasn't just everyone lip syncing to a song that they wrote for this occasion. Now, while I was worried about the non-Rue girls, which I'm just going to call the foursome of Grande, Marina, Keita, and Arantxa, they actually had a top 2 this episode with 2 non-Rue girls, with Grande and Marina Summers. I keep wanting to say Marina Diamond, like Marina and the Diamonds. I don't know why. And the top 2 felt correct. I will say on first watch, I was like so confused by Grande's talent that I was like, I don't even know how to feel. But it was that kind of like bizarro, like mindfuckery that RuPaul just like loves. So it was a really smart choice for her to do this like karaoke, but like weird noises and laughing, and it was just really, really fun. Whereas Marina did the lip sync, dance number. But she was able to show off so much of her culture, showed the audience from literally the very jump exactly who she is and what you can expect from her. And it was just like that type of number done very well and completely correct. So I thought this top 2 was very, very obvious. And I think the bottoms also made total sense. We had Gothy Kendall and we had Mayhem Miller. So I got tagged in so many Mayhem Miller things this entire time. My girl, listen. Do I think that she was treated unfairly her first 2 seasons? Yes. Do I think she could have made it further in both of her first 2 seasons? Yes. Do I think that Drag Race is the place that Mayhem thrives the most? No. And I think we saw that here, because she actually has a really good number. Like, it's a good idea, this like meditation, this guided meditation. It's smart. There's so much you can do with it. And I genuinely think she could have been like high with this if she hadn't just dropped the ball completely and kind of just went blank. And, we heard her talk about how long COVID has kind of had an impact on how she performs. And then we see what happens where she just kind of loses the path. And that's exactly what happened in the talent show on All Stars 5 with the "There's a blue been under my eyes since quarter 5." Like, she just kind of panics and goes blank, and she just is not able to recover. There's a lot of queens that this would happen to. They would miss a line or they would forget a line, whatever, and they can course correct. They can jump, make it seem like we would never even know. That they forgot something or whatever, or even if we do, they're able to like bring us back in really quickly. That is unfortunately not one of Mayhem's skills, and it was rough. This might be the worst talent show performance of all time. And then Gothy, we kind of see this storyline start to form this episode where it's almost like she's in over her head, and some of the skills that are necessary for being on RuPaul's Drag Race, she just doesn't have honed enough at this point of her career. And like, this was another one where like, if it was good, she could have been in the top. She could have been high. She does fleshing, which is like, rubbing fire against your skin and doing all these fire tricks. And, that part is really, really cool. But the whole first half is just her walking around the stage, lip syncing to her song with like very minimal energy. And you could just tell, kind of like in every single challenge this season, she just does not feel comfortable on that stage. Like, it looks like she doesn't want to be there. It looks like she's like, get me out of here. I am scared. I'm in over my head. Like, this is too much. And unfortunately, she's not able to hide that. It is all over her face. She's very wooden in her movements. So even though the fire stunt was awesome, the rest of the performance was just lacking a lot, and it was enough to kind of put her into the bottom. So while I agreed with the top 2 and the bottom 2, the other 2 placements seemed very strange to me. We have Theresa May as high and Scarlet Envy as low. Now, you all know Theresa May. She's my ultimate Drag Race crush. I'm in love with her. She's in my top 10 queens of all time. I was so happy to see her here. But I just don't think this season she had as much fire as she did the first time. Like, I think she did well. I think that she was great in the confessional. She was great in the workroom. I just think her challenge prowess this season wasn't as consistent as it was on UK3. But she did good this challenge. Teresa did a great job with the La Inferno, Hola Welcome song. And it was good. I just think it was like kind of safe. Like it was a pretty safe performance to me. I think that it was a kind of typical lip sync dance number, and there was nothing to kind of set it apart except for some of the props that would put it like into the high placement for me. There were just some other performances that I thought maybe were more warranted. Warranted. I just think there were more performances that were warranting this high placement over Choriza's, which is painful to say because I love that bitch so much, but that's just kind of how I felt. And then Scarlet Envy, this was when I was like, stop bringing her back. Just stop bringing her back because you guys just don't appreciate her. The judges, RuPaul, you do not appreciate what she does. You don't appreciate what she brings. She's not your cup of tea. That's fine. But stop bringing her back then. Stop wasting her time. Stop wasting her time. This was such a solid performance. She was singing live. It was a song about, like, here's the best advice I could give about winning Drag Race. And it's actually all of these things that, like, will make you lose, which is so funny. It's so tongue-in-cheek because she's lost twice now, and she hasn't really made it far before. Her voice was great. The song was funny. She had these jokes. She had a Jujubee joke. She had a write a verse about snatching the crown joke, which was very kind of like poignant for the time when everyone was kind of joking about that. Again, this performance felt so safe. And when she was in the bottom, I was like, I just don't understand what's happening. When it was Choriza and Scarlet up there on that stage, I thought Scarlet was going to be high and Choriza was going to be low. So the fact that Choriza was high and Scarlet was low, I was like, this is already a little bit confusing. But at least the winners and the losers felt correct. But as always on UK versus the World and these versus the World seasons, the top two lip syncs for the win, and they get to send home someone from the bottom two. Now, these lip sync songs this season, I didn't know almost any of them. They were all very just like Eurodance. Like that's kind of like the vibe of like almost all of them, like early 2000s Eurodance energy. And in this lip sync is when we first saw Marina. I mean, it's the second time in one episode that we saw what Marina Summers can fucking do, which is eat up a lip sync. She annihilates. Grande does a fine job, but as we've seen throughout the season, lip syncing isn't necessarily Grande's like number one talent like it is Marina's. So Marina wins the lip sync, and she ends up sending home Mayhem Miller. So if I've gotten comments like this before, so I just wanted to like say it now. The elim in this like will always be green because whoever the queen chooses is never rigged to me. Like that's just who they decided to send home. It might not be what I would have done, but that's not Riggory. That's just another person's decision. So overall, the first episode, there were a couple red flags, but it wasn't horrible. Nothing was like too rigged. So I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do this. Episode 2, nothing was rigged. I agreed with literally every single placement. I went ahead and I like rated all of the looks like I normally do for a ball, and my numbers came out almost exact to what like this would be. I think my numbers actually had Marina in top 2 over Grande, but like it was still really close, so I don't think there was like riggery involved. But this episode kind of started my decline for a little bit. This episode and the next 2 episodes was kind of my like, I'm not vibing. I'm not vibing with this season. Luckily, things get better, and I ended up liking it towards the end. But this is the kind of the point. The premiere was good. It was fun. It was fine. This episode I liked, but it was kind of the like, I'm getting a little bored. Like, it was so much fun in the workroom, and I really was enjoying the dynamics of the cast and the storylines that were going on. But something about these first couple episodes, they just did not catch my attention as much as the second half of the season's episodes did. Something that was great was Arantxa Castillo-La Mancha, who is just like a gem. I've not watched her season, but in 2 episodes, she made me fall in love with her so hard. She is such a funny, just gem of a human. And her friendship with Choriza was really, really nice to see. And, you know, it's nice now they have a podcast together. And, you know, that's like the good parts of the versus the world, where like queens from different franchises can have friendships and you wouldn't even know about it until they're on a season like this together. Unfortunately, it leads to them being in the bottom 2 and that being kind of like the storyline of the episode. But I'm just grateful that we got to meet Arantxa, on like a bigger platform like UK versus the World, and bring her back for like a España All Stars 2. Because like I would watch that. I would watch that just for Arantxa. Something that I think really affected this season a little bit was the language barrier, specifically with Kata Minaj. I feel like we saw her annihilate so hard in Drag Race Holland. And that spark just wasn't there for her. And I feel like it was because the second that she had to do these comedic challenges, I think she struggled a little bit with trying to translate Holland humor into the English language. In an episode like this, where she just has to create art, it's iconic. She does an amazing job. All of the looks that she turned were so, so, so good. And I wish we could have seen this energy for the entire season, because she is such a superstar. But I think both kind of... It seemed like the non-Ru Girl queens were so, like, starstruck and felt so much pressure doing a season with RuPaul. And I feel like that was kind of the most obvious from Kata Minaj. And I could be way off base. That's just my perception of what I saw in these episodes. But I think that also might have had something to do with Kata's kind of like, I don't want to say lackluster. I don't want to say disappointing, but like when you win as many challenges as she did on Holland 2, and then, is safe top to bottom of limb, like it's just a little bit like, oh, like the expectations were really high. So like what went wrong? What was the difference? And I feel like those are the differences. And, it was so nice to see Kata slaying this episode. I just wish we could have seen that energy continue for longer, because it's kind of a nosedive after this episode for her. But, I mean, the top three is so obvious. It's La Grande Dame, it's Marina Summers, and it's Kata Minaj. And any combination of those three in the top two would have made sense to me, and I would have been like, yeah, that checks out. I think it really just comes down to, like, personal preferences and, like, what you liked and what you didn't like as much from all of their looks. But all of their looks were great. So, top two, La Grande Dame and Kata Minaj, lip-syncing to Every Time We Touch by Cascada, which, like, yes, is so iconic. And La Grande Dame is able to make it stupid and wins the lip-sync. So our first two episode winners, the first two queens to get a Ru Peter badge, are non-Ru girls, which was like very surprising to me, but it made me really excited because all of my expectations coming in were kind of getting shattered. La Grande Dame decides to send home, unfortunately, Arantxa Castilla-La Mancha, but either one of these eliminations, if it was Choriza, if it was Arantxa, it would have been a devastating loss for the season. But that's just how the cookie crumbled. It was fair, but sad. And now we go into my least favorite episode of the season, the Drag Race World episode, which the queens were teamed up into trios, and they had to make a commercial for Drag Race World, which I still don't necessarily know what this was. Like, I kind of thought it was going to be like a VR type thing where you like put on the VR set and like you're transported to Drag Race World. But then like they were supposed to brand it to themselves and their seasons, but also like make it about drag. I don't know. This was a very confusing challenge, and I think the people that struggled the most were almost all of the ESL queens, like La Grande Dame and Kata Minaj. Even Marina Summers, like, she was good, but, like, you could tell they didn't necessarily know what was going on. And as an English first language speaker, I also didn't know what was going on. So I can't even imagine how hard it was for them. What we did see is Scarlet Envy got this. Like, she looked at that jumbled mess of what this challenge was and said, I know exactly what RuPaul wants. And she led her team to victory. And this was the Scarlet Envy episode. I think of all three of her seasons, this is like the episode of Scarlet Envy slayage. She completely understood the assignment. She led her team. She was by far the best in this challenge. And she won the lip sync by kind of a far margin. So this was a great moment for Scarlet. It was also one of those things where it was just so obvious that Scarlet Envy was like the top two, that, like, I don't think they could possibly rig it against her, because she was in a group with Choriza May and Gothy Kendall, And their commercial was just like so smooth. Like, if they wanted to, they could have just made this the top team and done like Scarlet and Choriza top two and like Gothi high. But that's not what happened because Tia Kofi gave a very, very solid performance in her team. And while her team didn't do well overall, she was such a highlight that it was kind of, it made sense that this was the top two. Like, these were the best performances of the week. So whether it was judged in teams, whether it wasn't judged in teams, like, I could see it going either way. But this was the top two of the episode. The choice to put Gothi in the top was a choice. I definitely would have picked Choriza. I think Choriza was really funny. She had a really good runway. Gothi had a really good runway and was a little bit less stiff than earlier in the season for the commercial, but she still wasn't like a standout. And I think she's actually just put in this position so that she can get more feedback from the judges because they are kind of like, you're getting better, you need to push even more. Like, you need to keep pushing. So I think that's why she was put in the top over someone like Choriza, who didn't necessarily need more critiques. Like, Choriza's gotten critiqued twice now, whereas like this was Gothi's second critique. And then for the bottom, it was La Grande Dame in the low position with Jambers Blonde and Kata Minaj in the bottom two. It made sense. All three of them, I had no idea what was going on for their little segment of their commercial. La Grande Dame was like impersonating fashion designers, which was like, okay, but this is supposed to be about you. And then Jambers was like in a classroom, she was in church, she was in the pub. Like, I did not get what was going on with whatever she was doing. And then Kata Minaj does the Katamorphosis and is rolling around in paint with the pit crew. It was insanity. It was like a drug trip, which is what I think she was going for, but it was just so incoherent that, and it didn't really have like a message. Like, here's my statement. Here's what I'm trying to say. It was just weird shit happening. So yeah, the bottoms made complete sense. And of the three, La Grande Dame had my favorite runway, so it would make sense to me that she was just low. So there is a lip sync to The Future Starts Now by Kim Petras, which Kim Petras as a guest judge, love. So many songs I would have chosen. Like, you have Throat Goat right there. You have like all of these iconic songs from like Slut Pop. Why would you choose Future Starts Now? That just seemed like a very strange choice. Maybe Kim wanted it. I don't know. But Scarlet Envy looked so damn good in this lip sync. So good. And she stomped Tia Kofi. And this was, like I said, Scarlet Envy's damn episode. And she sends home Jambers Blonde, who I think this is just a case of she came back too soon. You know, like, she was only on UK4 like a year ago, and I just don't think she had enough growth from what we saw on UK4. Because just like she came in saying like, oh, I'm the fashion queen, and her fashion was hit or miss, kind of like it was on UK4. Like, when it was a hit, it was a hit, but when it was a miss, it was a miss. So I feel like she felt like she had a lot to prove, and she did to some extent. But I just don't think she had gone through enough time to like really go through that growth. And, you know, you don't just get better, you know, after 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, you have to watch yourself and critique yourself and look at all the little things that you can do to like make what your craft is better. And I just don't think she had enough time. So Jambers was great entertainment. You know, all of episode 2, she kind of had a storyline about how she was voted like the worst fashion or something like that, and she was like on a witch hunt for like who was voting for her. You know, she was great while she was there. She was great in the reunion because she was so pissed about going home. But even her UK Alliance member did not save her here, with Tia Kofi also choosing to send her home. And that was kind of the big storyline for these first 3 episodes. It was the UK Alliance and how they flopped so hard at trying to keep it under wraps. Because you have 4 UK queens. You have Tia, you have Choriza, you have Gothi, and you have Jambers. And they're like fully having alliance meetings like in the middle of the workroom. It's giving like Monet and Trinity on UK or on All Star 7, where it's like, okay, so for our alliance, we're gonna do, and there's like a queen like 2 steps away that can like hear everything. So this was kind of becoming like a thing, like, oh, we have to get rid of these UK girls. And Tia Kofi makes the move to send home her UK sister to kind of get the target off of her back a little bit. And I think that was a really, really smart move. And low key, I think Tia's strategy in this season was top tier. Tia had really, really good decision making. And you could tell this bitch has watched a season or two of like Survivor or Big Brother because she knew what to do, when to do it, how to explain herself, how to get out of things. Specifically, this next episode, the Snatch Game, which she wins and decides to send home Kata Minaj and keep in Gothy Kendall, which could have been like a huge moment. Like, you sent home someone who won a challenge and kept Gothy Kendall, who like has kind of been struggling this entire time. But she was able to kind of talk herself out of it where like it was really not that big of a deal. Like, nobody really cared that hard. And this is, as you can see, another episode where I think everything was very, very fair. I think that Scarlet finally got to see a Snatch Game of her. She did the Statue of Liberty, and it was so funny. But Hanaconda doing Shirley Temple and Tia Kofi doing, I don't remember, the queen of some queen who like lost her head, like chopped her head off. Catherine the Great, something like that. I know nothing about history or historical figures, so that is not my gig. But then, yeah, the bottom three was also like very obvious. Like, and this is an episode where I think, again, the language barrier was very obvious to me because you have Kata Minaj and you have Le Grand Dame and you have Marina Summers who are all like trying their best, and RuPaul, this episode rubbed me the wrong way, and this is why I don't like this episode. RuPaul really pissed me off this episode because she was giving them nothing. Specifically, Marina and Le Grand Dame and Kata Minaj, the three ESL queens on this cast who are there still, she was giving nothing to. And what makes a great Snatch Game is the volley between RuPaul and the queen. Because RuPaul is fast enough where she can come up with stuff. She can come up with, Gothy Kendall is like, I'm so dirty, I would scrub this off with vinegar. And RuPaul's like, really? Is that it? Because, I thought that was kind of the obvious answer. Is there something special? And Gothy's like, no. Like, that was RuPaul trying to help Gothy, throwing another ball at Gothy's way for her to hit a home run with. And she didn't. But at least she had the option. We would have, like, Marina Summers say something really funny as Manny Pacquiao, and RuPaul was really like, okay, so moving on. You would have Le Grand Dame's opening up with a punchline with saying that she like visits something anally instead of annually, which normally RuPaul would like respond to in some way, but RuPaul's literally just like, oh, anyway, like it was just so off-putting to me because like, not saying that these three queens should get like special treatment just because they are ESL, but like if anyone deserves like another ball thrown their way in a Snatch Game, it would be them. And they got less than anybody. So it was just kind of like, are you trying to set them up for failure? I mean, there's literally a one-to-one comparison we can make where RuPaul is like, oh, Hanaconda, Shirley Temple, why don't you tap dance for us? And Hanaconda tap dances. And it's like funny, but it's nothing crazy. And RuPaul is like, ah! like, screaming, laughing, all these things. And then you have Marina Summers as Manny Pacquiao doing a duck walk, which I thought was so much more funny than Hanaconda. And RuPaul is like, wow, nice job, Manny. Anyway, it was just like, fuck off. What are you doing? I don't know. This episode really pissed me off. I definitely went off about it in the Rigged Recap episode, so I'm not going to go on about it for much longer here. But yeah, I everything was fair. I just think that some queens were set up to fail, almost, to be completely honest. They were just given less opportunities to be funny. When Gothy Kendall's not being funny, RuPaul's, doing what she can to help her out. But when Kata Minaj is struggling, it's crickets, and she moves on immediately. So I kind of just want to skip talking about the rest of this. Like, yeah, it was fair. Like, yeah, Tia Kofi won the lip sync and sends home Kata Minaj, which is like, yeah, I mean, it's a good move. I probably would have done the same thing. It just sucks for Kata, who, like, I think came in with a lot of pressure, and unfortunately, I just don't think was able to meet the expectations that were set for her. And we move on to our top 7, where they're doing 7, the Rusical, which was not a Rusical. It was just a girl group challenge. It was this typical girl group challenge, except in this case, they had to sing live. And this was a great episode. This was the first episode where things really started to turn around. This was just such a good dynamic with this cast. Like, the dynamic is just so good with specifically the top 6. But Gothi adds like a little bit of like something to the mix. So she was really fun to see in this episode as well. Gothi does go home after her 3rd time in the bottom. And we get, I actually think Michelle says it in the episode prior, but we get a critique that we almost never hear. And Michelle literally just tells Gothi, like, baby, you're not ready. Like, this is not your place. Like, this is not where you're going to shine. And it was kind of like, damn, like, even the judges don't think Gothi can do this. And Gothi doesn't think she can do this. And the queens don't think Gothi can do this, but Gothi's still here. So it was kind of like a crazy dynamic in this episode where, like, you can tell that she's trying to have fun, and she is having fun, but, like, she knows she's not winning. Everyone knows she's not winning, and it's just, that must be such a weird, like, dynamic to have in the room. So each of the queens gets a verse. They also have to make their own choreo, so things obviously get a little bit jumbled up during the rehearsals, but this ends up being a really good number. And the bottom 2 of Choriza and Gothi are the only 2 that don't do, like, a really good job. And I think everyone else is high. Like, I don't have the room to, like, put it here, like, all of them, but everyone was high, except for Choriza and Gothi, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like, I think that you could do, like, a 4th high placement. I think that makes sense. But, like, I don't think Grande did crazy good. I don't think Tia Kofi did, like, insanely good. And we'll get into, like, who I would have put as, like, the top 3 later. But Tia Kofi, listen. She's gotten a lot of flack this season, which is bullshit. Because really, there's been so much talk about her being pushed. This is the only episode that I really think she gets pushed. I think that every other episode, I can either agree with or understand why she was put there, wherever she was. This episode is the one I don't see her in the top. Personally, I do not see her even high in this episode, where there's so many great performances. She has a thing that was on the season, and it was there a couple times, where I feel like she was just kind of stiff in some of her performances. I felt that way for the talent show. I felt that way for this episode. I felt that way for the dance challenge. I just feel like she gets a little bit nervous, and you can kind of see. And I feel like with taller people, it's kind of a disadvantage, because, like, a shorter person, like, I feel like just you wouldn't notice as much, but with, like, the longer limbs, you can tell when they're a little bit stiffer. And I just felt like this episode, it was really kind of obvious. Whereas, like, Marina is, like, you know, if there was, like, a solo winner for many of these episodes, it would always just be Marina, because she is everything. And if anybody truly, like, won the season, like, is leaving with the biggest push, is leaving with the biggest everything, it is Marina Summers. This was an amazing opportunity for her. I expect her to get the Jimbo treatment, where she's probably going to be on, like, a US All-Star season, and I would be down for that. You know, she was able to just adapt her Filipino drag style so perfectly to the, like, US UK drag race mold, and it was just so incredible to watch her every week, to see what she would wear, to see what she'd be saying in the confessional, to see what she'd be doing in the challenges. And this was, I think, the high moment of her entire tenure on the season. This episode was the Marina Summers fucking show. She ate, she devoured, and it was just another obvious win for her. Like, it was, like, not even close. This was Marina's episode to win. She gets her 2nd repeater badge, and she ends up sending home Gothi Kendall. Now, this episode also annoyed me a little bit, because I feel like this could have easily been a Scarlet Envy top 2. I think that Scarlet Envy had amazing vocals. She looked great in the challenge. She performed well. My eye would always go to her. With all these people on the stage, someone like Grande, someone like Tia Kofi, someone like Theresa May, my eye just wouldn't go to them. My eye always went to Marina. My eye always went to Scarlet, because they knew every move. They felt powerful on the stage. And I think that just like in the last couple seasons she's done, I think that production likes her because the fans like her. I don't know if they actually like her enough to be like, oh, we want Scarlet Envy to make it to the end. Like, we could see Scarlet Envy as a contender for, like, I don't think they ever see her as that. And it's kind of like, okay, then why keep bringing her back? And this episode is the perfect example where, like, I truly think she was the clear second best in this episode, but she's not in the top 2. And it's kind of just like, okay, well, I'm not rooting for Scarlet because I know that there's no chance of her making it to top 4. It always felt like I wanted to root for Scarlet, but I know she had no real shot of winning because production just does not see her like that. So it just, like, it's like, why would I root for her? I'm just going to be disappointed when she inevitably goes home at some point, which is exactly what happened. But again, this was another great episode for Scarlet. Episodes 3, 4, and 5, Scarlet Envy destroyed every single one of them. And it was just a really nice kind of like mini run for her in a season. And I think was the strongest run we've seen for her. It's close. All-Star 6, those first 4 episodes, she did great in every single one of them. Her runways were great in every single one of them. But these 3 episodes, it felt like she really just knew what she was doing. Like, seeing her do Snatch Game for the first time, seeing her win a challenge solo for the first time, seeing her win a lip sync. Like, it really felt like, okay, Scarlet knows what's going on. She went home on a dance challenge in season 11, and she ate up this dance challenge in UK versus the World 2, and that wasn't even a storyline. That could have been a great storyline moment for her, was not even mentioned. So, a great episode for Scarlet Envy, but she's given crumbs for it. So, nothing has changed. Gothy going here, it's sad because, like, she is a first out, and you would hope that you would get, like, a redemption arc, you know what I mean? Like, but then for every, like, Kylie Sonique love, there's, like, a Serena Cha-Cha, you know what I mean? So, like, I feel like some of these queens that come back after going home super early, like, they have grown so much, but others, you know, not everybody's going to be able to do Drag Race. Like, there are so many iconic drag queens and drag artists who were not iconic on Drag Race. And that's going to be Gothy Kendall's journey. And that's okay. You know, you might not be able to make it big on Drag Race, but she definitely makes it big on OnlyFans. Anyway, we're at the top 6, and they're doing a Strictly Come Dancing parody challenge. It's actually not played out really as a parody. It's pretty serious. Like, they have to learn these dances. I think it's the samba, the quick step, and the tango. And they get to be put in pairs. And this episode is really where Hanaconda's storyline amps up. Because she's been in the top 2 once. She's kind of been safe a lot throughout the season. And she's kind of getting really hungry for a badge. You know, Marina has 2 at this point. A lot of other people have a badge. Grande and Scarlet and Tia. So it's really just Hanaconda and Theresa May left without a badge. So Hanaconda's thirsty for it. She gets partnered with Marina Summers. And really the episode becomes about, is Hanaconda going to keep up with Marina in a dancing challenge, or is she going to get overshadowed and potentially end up in the bottom for it? Luckily, she ends up keeping up with Marina and ends up in the top. Unfortunately, she's unable to beat Marina in the lip sync and does not get her badge this episode. But Marina gets her 3rd badge in 6 episodes. You better work, bitch. She is like, oh my gosh, she's everything. I mean, this video, I'm probably going to have to cut out some of how much I'm just raving about fucking Marina Summers. This episode is judged in teams, and it makes sense why it would be because they are so reliant on each other. Theresa May, Miss Theresa May, my queen, my goddess, my love, she really, I think, holds back Scarlet Envy as well, and I think is kind of the reason why they were in the bottom, because you're only as good as your partner in a dancing challenge, and Theresa was kind of all over the place. She was trying to be campy and, like, funny, but, like, she's doing the tango, you know what I mean? Like, you take the quick step if you want to camp it up. But you took a pretty, like, sexy dance, and I just don't think that's where Theresa is able to really, like, let out her power. Like, I don't look at Theresa and I'm like, oh, she's a sex pot, you know what I mean? Like, I look at Theresa and I'm like, she's a goofball who's going to make me giggle and laugh and turn a look while she does it. So unfortunately, this just was not the moment for Scarlet or for Theresa. and they end up in the bottom. It's Scarlet's first bottom. And this is kind of like a big moment for Scarlet, too, because as we've seen throughout the season, Scarlet was not able to make friends. Like, she wasn't able to connect with people on this cast. And maybe it's because she went in, like, this is my third time. I'm here to win. I don't care. I have enough friends. Like, we'll tour after Divas. It'll be fine. But, Hannah Conda really considers sending Scarlet Envy home here. And she actually does it. So if she would have won this lip sync, Scarlet Envy would have been gone. Because you have the opposite, where Choriza, I don't know if she was there to win. Because even when she goes home in this episode, she's like, I'm not crying because I lost the crown. I'm crying because I'm going to miss these girls so much. And, being in this environment with them and having the time of my life. And Choriza, was really close with the cast. And, it kind of felt like Marina and Hannah and Tia and Le Grand Dame and Choriza were such a tight group, and Scarlet just wasn't a part of that. So Scarlet is very lucky that Marina decided to keep her, because she could have easily kept Choriza, gotten rid of Scarlet, who had a badge, and who she didn't really have as close a relationship with. And I think that's kind of partly where Scarlet isn't the best at playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, part of this is making bonds that will keep you here if you end up in the bottom too. And she was unable to do that. You know what I mean? Like, Marina kept her, but Hannah sent her home despite that not really being the fair move. Fair being, in quotations, based on track record or whatever. But that's really, I think, where Scarlet is lacking. And I think because of that, because she's not able to get super emotionally attached to people, I think that's kind of partly why there's this gap of where production and RuPaul just could care less about Scarlet Envy, but the fans love her because Scarlet is great in the confessional, but I just don't see her giving maybe what needs to be given elsewhere, that heart. She is constantly trying to banter with RuPaul during critiques, and RuPaul never, ever gives her anything in return. She could say the funniest thing in the world. She could say something that, like, if Jinx Monsoon said, RuPaul would, like, have to go to the hospital because she, like, broke a rib laughing so hard. And if Scarlett said it, RuPaul would be like, and I don't think it's random. I don't think that RuPaul just woke up one day and decided to, Scarlet Envy, I fucking hate your guts. I think part of the reason is that Scarlett just isn't able to connect with people as inherently as someone like Theresa May or Tia Kofi or Marina Summers or Hannah Conda can. Or even looking at, like, All-Star 6, like how Kylie Sonique Love or Eureka or Raja can. So Theresa May does go home here, and we move on to the roast, which I thought was so much fun because it was a roast, but it was, like, themed roast. And it was Graham Norton and Michelle Visage's wedding, which was so fun. I loved this. Again, we definitely did see the language barrier, or maybe cultural barrier, came into play, where you had Le Grand Dame, who's like, I don't know what to do because we don't do this type of humor in France. Like, a roast would never happen in France. So I don't necessarily know how to, like, adapt my humor to this type of challenge. And as we saw, she really wasn't able to. I really haven't talked about Le Grand Dame as much this video because she kind of starts off so strong and then just not disappears, but she just isn't able to meet the heights that she met those first two episodes. And outside of being in a flirtmance with Tia Kofi, she really is not important to the narrative at all. Like, outside of the Tia stuff, Le Grand Dame is really not in these episodes much. It becomes so much about Hannah Conda and Tia and Scarlet, and Le Grand Dame really doesn't have a storyline outside of flirting with Tia Kofi, which is unfortunate because she did start so strong and she did have so much to bring, and her runways were incredible, and she's so funny and stupid. I just think that it's, for whatever reason, she was not able to adapt her drag to these challenges. Because, even in, like, in the Drag Race world, it just was not great. In Snatch Game, was not great. In Seven the Rusical, like, she was definitely one of the more forgettable people in that challenge. And then in the dancing challenge, like, I think she was good. I think she was of the two, of Tia and Le Grand Dame, she was the better dancer, but it wasn't anything like groundbreaking. And then here in this episode, she just, like I mentioned, isn't able to like adapt her humor to this type of challenge. So it sucks that she really, of the top 4, I think she went into the finale with the least momentum. But this episode, we see Scarlet Envy go home, which sucks, but she was the worst out of the 5, even if she doesn't believe so. This was a slam dunk episode for Grande, however, who finally gets her badge. That storyline is finally completed, and she gets to go into the finale with the last badge. And, I really think it's partly why she was able to get runner-up, and it really didn't feel like, Grande? Really? Because she was kind of killing it from Snatch Game on. She was the opposite of La Grande Dame. For those first 3 episodes, Grande was kind of just there, and then the second half of the season, she kicked it into full gear, which that's how you want to do it. I would much rather finish strong than start strong. There's not a ton to talk about in this episode. It's if you're not in the top, you're in the bottom, and it was a very clear top 2 of Grande and Tia Kofi. So Hannah wins the lip sync. She sends home Scarlet. She's already done it once. So why not do it again? And if you haven't noticed, there hasn't been a ton of Riggory this season. Now, I do think that changes going into the lip sync tournament, but I think that there was just a clear top of the pack and a clear bottom of the pack, and this doesn't always happen, but I think the top of the pack were the people that production really liked, so there was no need to be rigging things left and right. There's, a couple things that'll switch up the season a little bit, but this is a pretty fair season overall. I think, especially with the other 2 versus the World seasons, this one is definitely the fairest of the 3, and that's not shocking then why it's also probably my favorite of the 3. But we go into the finale, which is the lip sync tournament, which I hate, and they get paired against each other and then have to lip sync against each other. First lip sync is a rematch between Grande and Marina Summers, and it's kind of set up as Marina's the one to beat. No one wants to lip sync against Marina. No one wants to even try because she's just going to annihilate everybody. And then we see Grande beats her to an Anastasia song, I'm Out of Love. There's been so much stuff that has come out after this lip sync where Marina basically went to the club and redid her performance and was like, here's what you missed. They cut out a lot of my tricks and a lot of my stunts, and here's exactly what I did in that lip sync and what you didn't get to see. And then if you compare her lip sync number, which I can link or if I can find it, to the lip sync cut that we saw, you can literally see where Marina would be doing these things, but they specifically just don't show her. They show so much of Alan Carr and Graham Norton when Marina is literally jumping into splits and shit and dips and all these things. They're showing just Graham Norton, and I'm like, okay. It was very much one of those lip syncs where they show Marina at the start and then it is the Grande show. And I'm just going to be completely honest, and you can disagree with this if you want. I just don't believe that Grande beat Marina Summers in a lip sync. I love Grande, love her. I just don't believe it. And I think that the fact that they had to cut so much of Marina's stuff is just proof of that. I think that they... And again, this is kind of tinfoil hat, and you can disagree with me. That's completely fine. This is just my opinion. I think Tia Kofi was going to win this season no matter what. At this point, we're going into the finale. I think Tia Kofi was 1,000 billion trillion % winning. Not a doubt in the production company's mind, because she is so marketable. And this is, at the end of the day, a show where it's on the BBC. They can take the winner of the season and put them on all these shows, late night shows and there's so many opportunities that come from winning seasons of Drag Race. Why would the BBC not want a UK resident, a UK queen, to represent UK versus the world? It's happened twice now, and you can say that's wrong. You can say you can disagree. That's completely fine. As someone who's looking at this from the production side of things, I just think it makes so much sense why they would do this. And I can't necessarily fault them for it either, because, now Tia Kofi can go on the Graham Norton show, and she can get all these opportunities to go on the game shows and do the whole press junket. and it's for a queen from the UK. So I feel like you have to get rid of Marina Summers. Like, Marina Summers cannot be in that final lip sync because unless they pull a Jinx and Monet, like, she's winning. She's winning the season. So by hiding some of her stuff, by putting her against Hannah Conda, who's doing something completely different. Like, Hannah Conda's recreating the music video, or maybe it was a performance of this song. And that's, something that RuPaul and Michelle love when they can reference. They're doing two completely different things, and they're able to cut out the better parts of Marina's, highlight the best parts of Hannah's, and say, sorry, Marina, Hannah won. And that's exactly what happened. Now, for the second lip sync, it is between Tia Kofi and Grande. Oh, the lovers. How shocking that they would have to go up against each other in a lip sync to the death. And a lot of people have said that they thought Grande won this. I disagree. I think Tia Kofi won. I think this is the strongest Tia Kofi lip sync of the season. She has so many bits planned. She's doing literally bit after bit after bit. And I just think Tia did a really, really good job here. And lip syncing is not, I think, Grande's biggest skill. So it made sense to me that Tia Kofi would win here. And that leaves a Tia Kofi and Hannah Conda top 2 performance for the crown, where they lip sync to the iconic Your Disco Needs You by Kylie Minogue, which if they do a Kylie Minogue finale lip sync for every season of UK versus the World, for every season of Drag Race UK, I would live. Kylie Minogue, if you have not listened to Kylie Minogue, there are 2 singers that I think are a little bit more irrelevant to my generation's taste in music. They just haven't, had their peak when my generation was growing up with music, but whose discographies blew my mind, and everybody should go deep dive their entire discographies. It's Kylie Minogue and Janet Jackson. Those are 2 queens, iconic legends of music. And every time I see a comment that's why another dried up Kylie Minogue lip sync? Let's move on. Or another Janet Jackson? Please. I'm listen. Go listen to The Velvet Rope. Go listen to Body Language. Just go do these things. You will come out so much better. I'm a better person for it. I am a better man because I deep dived Janet Jackson and Kylie Minogue's discographies. So this was great. It was a really fun lip sync, and it was one that you could kind of tell that they choreographed a little bit, because at the end they had bits that they were doing, and Tia Kofi shatters the glass bottle on Hannah Conda and all these things. And if I were Hannah Conda, I would not say yes to that, because you literally just killed me. That's you killed me in a lip sync. That means you win and I lose. It's whenever someone's pretending to top someone in a lip sync, they're always gonna win, because you're the bottom, bitch. Hannah Conda, you're the one who's dead. I just beat your ass. It's just not going to end up well for you. So Tia Kofi, I also think, won this final lip sync fairly and squarely, and she wins the entire season. So congratulations to Tia Kofi. I'm so sorry you've had to deal with all of these nasty racist remarks because Marina Summers lost, which Tia had nothing to do with. She did not lip sync against Marina in this finale. And it's Tia Kofi's so irrelevant to what happened. So how Tia gets all of the hate is bizarre to me. But, with this fandom, I should not be shocked. But I think that Tia Kofi, unfortunately, is going to leave with a little bit of the legacy of that she was pushed, which I don't think is fair. Like I said, I think there was one episode that she was unfairly in the top. Every other episode, I completely agree with her placement. There's maybe one I could see her potentially being low, but it wasn't Tia was so obviously saved here. No, I don't think that ever happened. I don't think that it's unfair that Tia Kofi was never in the bottom 3 this season. One of her wins I disagree with, but there's still 3 other ones that are oh yeah, no, she 1000% deserved that win. The Snatch Game, the Roast, the Drag Race World, 1000% she deserved to be top 2. So the fact that people are saying she doesn't deserve to win, I genuinely think Marina, Hannah, Tia, any of them could have won, and I would have been yeah, no, that's great. And that's no shade to Grande. I just don't think her track record, I just don't think her overall performance on the season was as consistent as those other 3. Those 3, any of them could have won, I would have been yes, love it, iconic, deserved. Do I wish it was maybe a little bit fairer? Do I wish that the lip sync SmackDown didn't have things edited out? Yes, I do. But that doesn't involve Tia Kofi, and it doesn't change the fact that I think Tia Kofi slayed this season and is a deserved winner. I just think in general we need to get rid of the SmackDown, especially for the win, because there's always going to be someone they want to win, and there's always going to be people who they don't want to win, and those people who they don't want to win are going to get screwed in the edit. It's happened to Monet, it's happened to Marina. I'm sure it's happened in other cases and we just don't know about it. Let's get rid of the lip sync smackdown. I'm done with it. Especially when it's not even in front of an audience. You know what I mean? It's just 4 people sitting there. It's like, okay, now what? It's like we've seen it on such a grand scale at these US finales that seeing it on just the main stage with the judges and the queens there, it's like, this feels so small. It feels so insignificant. It feels like such a last thought. Overall, I had a really good time with the season. I really enjoyed especially the second half. I would be down if they did another UK versus the world. I just think there needs to be a little bit more carefulness in the treatment of the international queens. I think that there's just more that production can do to even out the playing field. Because whether it be bigger or smaller, depending on the queen, there is a slight disadvantage if you're doing your second language and everyone else is doing their first. In specifically comedy challenges, that will always be an issue. And that makes me really worried for global all-stars. Like, how's that going to go where there's a majority ESL queen cast? Like, I'm picturing with how the ESL queens were treated on this season, I'm picturing that not going super well. So I'm very worried for that, to be completely honest with you. But I would love to hear all of your thoughts and all of your opinions on UK versus the World Season 2. There will be a video where I go through and give all of my opinions. Hopefully we'll get that out also this week before Season 16's finale. There's so many videos I want to do, but there's just not enough time. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to do a Plain Jane and an Nymphia video after Season 16 finishes, which sucks. But I guess I can kind of tell the whole story, like, once it's finished. That'll be coming. Riggory Season 16 coming. That's what's coming down the pipeline. Also, I have a collab coming up that I am excited about, and I don't know what order any of this is coming out, but it's all coming out. So, if you want to not miss a single one of these videos, please make sure that you are subscribed. We are so close to 75K, and I'm so excited for that. Also, if you are a Drag Duel stan, we have a GoFundMe going for Season 2. So if you want to help us do all of the things that go into Drag Duel, please support our Indiegogo campaign. I will link that in the description below as well. Also, the Rigged Recap is still going on for Season 16, where me and my host Kayla Says are breaking down every episode. We will also be doing the Rigged Recap for All Stars 9, which I'm not sure when it's coming. It's coming, I'm assuming, this summer, like All Stars usually does. So that is available on all podcast platforms, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And I think that's everything. Drag Duel Season 2 is officially in production. We have our cast. Their promos are done. They're working on their round 1 shit, and I'm so excited for the season. So if you want to go catch up on Season 1 of Drag Duel, just go search Drag Duel on YouTube and you will find Season 1. That's like the thing that brings my soul so much happiness, is like, I love doing this channel, but something about just like getting to prop up these artists from all over the world and, you know, show off types of drag that just don't usually get those types of visibility is so fun to me. I love it. I'm so excited for Season 2. This cast is iconic. So make sure you go check out Drag Duel if you want a different type of drag competition show in the wake of Season 16 to keep you fed. Thank you all so much for your patience as I've been dealing with this fucking flu. Regular video scheduling will be back. Hopefully we'll get a couple weeks with 2 videos each now to catch up. And thank you all so much for watching, so much for being here, and so much for subscribing. I appreciate you all, and I will catch you in the next one.